It was Thursday, October 12th, 2023, in Mayfair, central London's playground of wealth. A man in a tuxedo, a woman in a silk gown, strolling past designer stores. On his wrist, a gold Rolex. They looked like the perfect targets, but they weren't. Both were undercover officers. Bait in an ongoing sting to expose one of London's most elusive crime groups. What unfolded that night was the result of months of surveillance, sleepless nights, and countless failed leads. And it wasn't the only operation. Across Britain, from Soho to Dorset, agents were quietly setting traps for the same network. The question was, who was behind it all? And how did a series of street robberies evolve into a nationwide criminal enterprise? This is how the Rolex Rippers were finally caught. It started as a trend the statistics couldn't conceal. By 2019, accounts of high-value timepiece thefts were already increasing. But what came next was a spike that captured the full focus of British police. In the 4 years that followed, over 9,000 luxury watches were taken across the UK, a number that astonished even veteran detectives. Approximately 1 in 5 of those thefts included some degree of violence. Victims weren't just being deceived or diverted anymore. They were being trailed, intimidated, and assaulted. Watches had become the new form of street tender for organized crime, small enough to conceal, valuable enough to compete with gold, and readily sold again through underground channels. Detectives labeled them as ideal plunder, easy to carry, high status, and traceable only if felons erred. A single Rolex or Patek Philippe could be exchanged half a dozen times in just hours, moving through grey market operators, pawn shops, and online sellers using false identities. By 2022, the trend hit its zenith. Police units from London to Hampshire were documenting fresh reports weekly. Moped pursuits, follow-home assaults, and daytime robberies outside golf venues and eateries. Social media updates showing victims with their luxury timepieces became stalking territory. Criminals were tracking tags, searching for affluent men departing exclusive venues or private fitness centers. But the most important shift wasn't the volume of crimes. It was the technique. These weren't spontaneous criminals any longer. Investigators started to find organized syndicates. Teams stealing specific items on demand, coordinated by handlers who itemized particular brands, models, and even serial numbers they required. Offenders were dispatched with acquisition lists, Submariners, Daytonas, and Oyster perpetuals, all targeted to fulfill orders for buyers lined up in advance across Europe. By late 2023, the Metropolitan Police had discreetly altered their approach, and the change prompted a gradual but noticeable reduction in reported incidents across the capital. London had emerged as the core of the problem. Police intelligence charted a distinct three-sided area: Westminster, Chelsea, Soho, and Knightsbridge. Within them lay some of the most affluent districts in the nation, where opulence was displayed overtly, and detectives started naming it the Robbery Triangle. It was not arbitrary. It was methodical, foreseeable, and skillful. Between Thursday and Saturday evenings, from 11 p.m. to approximately 4 a.m., the exact same avenues witnessed the exact same kind of assault. Men departing exclusive venues, casinos, and eateries, oblivious they were being observed. The offenders seldom acted spontaneously. Police surveillance video showed the technique. Crews operating in tiers. At the bottom were the lookouts, individuals stationed outside the city's most affluent venues. They were not thieves themselves, at least not directly. Their role was to pinpoint a victim and flag them. A press on a phone screen, a communication sent via secure messaging platforms, and a photograph relayed to the next team poised nearby. The victims almost invariably fit a consistent demographic: men aged 30 to 70, wearing designer watches as subtle indicators of success. What had previously been a display of affluence had transformed into an indicator of vulnerability. Detectives later approximated that the bulk of victims in luxury watch robberies in London were male. Most were unaccompanied or in small parties. Some were trailed to their vehicles. Others were attacked unexpectedly within moments of exiting a club. Soho and Mayfair turned into focal points for diversionary robberies, fast, fluid thefts, executed under the guise of nightlife commotion. In Knightsbridge, it was the reverse, meticulously arranged attacks, occasionally utilizing mopeds, where the robbers would hit, grab, and flee through side roads before law enforcement could respond. For the syndicates, London wasn't merely territory, it was a stage, a setting where the globe's most renowned timepieces moved among them nightly. And, for those observing from the darkness, every movement of a Rolex was another chance ready to be seized. Across a stretch of golf club counties and wealthy town centres, detectives recorded a recurring embrace and snatch tactic. Pairs of women, frequently targeting older men, initiated with a subtle diversion. A petition for a school for the deaf, a warm hug, a kiss on the cheek, or a query for directions. In moments, the fastener was undone, and the Rolex was gone without a sign. Police forces recorded almost identical methods in Dorset, Hampshire, West Sussex, Surrey, Gloucestershire, and Cheshire, connecting incidents not by faces, but by technique, victim demographic, and timing. Victims consistently recounted the same sequence of moves. In Wimborne, Dorset, Alan Bruce, 64, was approached by two women with a clipboard, pretending to be fundraisers. During a brief hug and casual conversation about his aftershave, his £14,000 Rolex Yachtmaster disappeared. In Emsworth, West Sussex, Derek Freestone, 77, signed a petition in a stationary car. One woman lunged to embrace him as the other grasped his hand. His £12,500 gold Rolex was gone before he closed the door. In the Cotswolds, Bourton-on-the-Water, Gloucestershire, Michael Perry, 84, had a £15,000 Rolex taken by a woman posing as a charity volunteer outside a grocery store. At Ferndown Golf Club, Dorset, Robin Hawke was singled out for a £20,000 Rolex Daytona in a car park encounter. And in Canford Cliffs, Poole, Richard Gleave, 79, lost an £8,000 Rolex after two women diverted his attention outside his residence. Though the faces changed, the method stayed the same. Investigators officially connected this pattern to a structured syndicate believed to consist mainly of Eastern European women, working in pairs with an escape driver waiting close by. Hampshire police noted they were investigating over 30 such incidents in their jurisdiction alone, while Dorset police acknowledged no new arrests in several similar cases, a sign of how quickly these crews crossed force boundaries. Targets were predominantly older men displaying visible high-end models, Submariner, Daytona, Oyster, in locations where brief, friendly interaction would not seem unusual. The most significant investigative lead emerged with Stefania Tineika, 40, the first confirmed conviction tied to this female diversion pattern. Two connected incidents defined her case. First, on January 3rd near Alderley Edge Golf Club, Cheshire, Tineika and a partner attempted to take a £10,000 Rolex Submariner from Simon Kelly. He pulled away. The DNA retrieved from his wrist later matched Tineika, though she couldn't be located immediately. 5 months later, on May 30th in Bingham Avenue, Poole, near Parkstone Golf Club, a 75-year-old was stopped, hugged, and only later noticed his £15,930 Submariner had been removed. CCTV from an adjacent property put Tineika at the location. The watch was never found. She was apprehended at Luton Airport months later while trying to leave the UK and was eventually noted as the first member of this gang to be found guilty. A rare, documented link between the technique and a named perpetrator. Nonetheless, most related incidents remain unresolved. Over 30 nearly identical thefts and attempts across southern England with differing descriptions. Reports indicate that officials have stated foreign nationals given custodial sentences of 12+ months are subject to deportation unless exemptions are met. However, results are case by case and not assured. But just as police believe they grasp the pattern, a different type of crew surfaced, faster, noisier, and significantly more violent. In the last days of 2021, a 6-person team began a theft rampage that stunned investigators with its velocity, brutality, and teamwork. Operating between Chelsea and Balham, the group attacked within an 18-day period from December 21st, 2021 to January 9th, 2022, utilizing the same stolen BMW equipped with fake license plates. Investigators later identified the men as Michael Marek Ahmed, 29, Kaijuan Henry, 19, Russian Clark, 18, Zachariah Yusuf, 19, Jesse Umar, 18, and Joseph Opoku, 19. Each had a function. Ahmed was the driver and planner, Henry and Clark the primary assailants, and the others served as spotters and enforcers. The first day of the rampage, December 21st, saw 3 brutal thefts. At 11:15 a.m. on Old Church Street, Chelsea, a man was intercepted by 2 of the crew. His Tag Heuer watch, valued around £1,500, was torn from his arm. Less than an hour later, in Balham, another victim was pursued and struck to the pavement, his bag taken, while a zombie knife was waved to intimidate onlookers. That evening outside a Chelsea pub, the group confronted 2 men at a table, demanding their Patek Philippe and Breguet watches, each valued near £35,000. 18 days later, on January 9th, 2022, they reappeared in Draycott Avenue, Chelsea. A couple was assaulted as they headed to their car. The woman's £6,000 Rolex and Bulgari ring were wrenched away, while her partner was struck repeatedly, sustaining facial fractures before losing his £1,150 Tag Heuer. Around that period, former boxing champion Amir Khan was held up with a firearm in Leighton, compelled to surrender his £70,000 Frank Moller, evidence that nobody was invulnerable in their view. The gang's undoing came moments later. Victims had noted part of the BMW's registration, initiating a swift search. When armed units trapped the car in Balham, the suspects ran away, leaving it with a wealth of clues inside. House keys, mobile phones, a bank card, a jacket, and a large machete lodged under a seat. Forensic teams linked fingerprints and DNA, while a retrieved phone held pictures of Henry and Clark, displaying the pilfered timepieces. Within weeks, every member was located and apprehended. Investigators later tied their operation to a broader pattern of organized street crews active across London, exchanging vehicles, weapons, and handlers for stolen property. What started as random street thefts had revealed evidence of an organized system. Young, brutal, and meticulously interconnected. The arrests provided detectives a brief feeling of control. But under the surface, London's robbery syndicates were already changing. As one crew was caught, another was discreetly emerging into the public eye. It was one of the boldest police maneuvers the Metropolitan Police had ever executed. An undercover sting carried out in the centre of Mayfair, where opulence and crime had discreetly met. On the evening of October 10th, 2024, a plainclothes couple walked hand in hand through Berkeley Square. Their look was stylish, calm, and clearly affluent. The man wore a fitted navy suit and a watch that shone under the street lamps. The woman, in a silk dress, wore a rose gold Patek Philippe, but both were plainclothes agents. What happened next occurred in moments. As the pair turned into Hayes Mews, 3 men appeared from the darkness. One of them, later identified as Jacob Harkett, 21, jumped ahead, grabbing the female officer's wrist and ripping away the fake Patek Philippe rose gold watch. His associates, Mohammed Nas, 34, Ioannis Ammon, 37, and Adel Mohammed, 31, were close by, prepared to help. But before the robbers could vanish, a team of plainclothes support officers converged. CCTV footage later made public showed the mayhem. The officer losing his footing on the pavement as he brought down one suspect, another robber sprinting toward the square, and then a flood of Met officers rushing in from all sides. Harkett was apprehended moments later. His watch grab had failed, and the bait timepiece was dropped and found at the scene. Nas was captured nearby and claimed innocence. But his phone revealed a different account. Data extraction uncovered months of secure messages between the men, along with Google searches for Richard Mille watches and the Rafael Nadal RM 27-03. Models valued at hundreds of thousands of pounds. Detectives stated the evidence verified a theft-on-demand syndicate, where gangs targeted particular luxury brands for foreign buyers lined up in advance. In Suffolk Crown Court, prosecutors portrayed Nas as a vital part of a system operating under organised handlers to arrange hits across London's West End. Harkett pleaded guilty to robbery, while Nas was found guilty by a jury. Ammon and Mohammed were prosecuted in their absence after fleeing, and arrest warrants are still active. The Mayfair sting demonstrated that covert methods were effective, but it was just the start. As one crew fell, others kept hunting across Soho and Westminster, compelling the Met to replicate the same covert strategy in the very centre of London's nightlife. Between October 2022 and October 2023, the Metropolitan Police's Covert Policing Command and Central London Robbery Team initiated a wide-ranging covert operation aimed at breaking up the organised watch robbery syndicates plaguing the West End. Officers analysed months of information, charting every incident by time, brand, and postcode. The trend was clear. The bulk of attacks happened between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., and nearly 40% transpired within a 1 square mile area encompassing Soho, Mayfair, South Kensington, and Chelsea. The strategy was precise. Plainclothes officers were sent out as lures, wearing high-end watches, walking through identified hotspots, and acting just like the victims' gangs had been hunting for months. Throughout the operation, the outcome was clear. 31 arrests, 27 formal charges, and 21 convictions so far. But not every encounter concluded peacefully. Among the most brutal incidents was the trio of Ezekiel Eady, Lamine Jamba, and Andre Whittingham, who intimidated patrons on Brewer Street, Soho. Their assaults were rapid, frantic, and merciless, pulling victims to the pavement, striking them repeatedly before grabbing their watches and wallets. Surveillance cameras recorded the violence, assisting investigators in linking them to a stolen moped discovered nearby. DNA collected from helmets and gloves confirmed their guilt. Each of the men was convicted at Suffolk Crown Court, their sentences mirroring the viciousness of the assaults, a combined total of over 20 years in prison. Police insiders later mentioned that these were the type of offenders who capitalized on the pandemonium of Soho's nightlife, exploiting its noise and shadows as concealment. Behind every successful takedown of a Rolex Ripper crew, there was a methodology, a blend of data-driven law enforcement and behavioral study. Officers compared CCTV with mobile tower data, developed offender profiles, and modified patrol schedules in real time. Each weekend operation was informed by the intelligence from the prior week. By late 2023, the figures presented their own narrative. Watch robberies across Westminster, Kensington, and Chelsea had fallen by nearly 30% in only 3 months. And for the first time in years, detectives sensed the tide shifting in their advantage. Confirmation that data, persistence, and accuracy could triumph where standard patrols had been unsuccessful. Some of the most recent Rolex robbers were not permanent inhabitants at all. They had just arrived in the UK through requests for asylum. The most notable case involved 4 Algerian nationals: Ahmed Al-Zarzour, 29, Zaineddin Brahim, 30, and Mohamed Kaou, 36, Amin Abdelkader, 25, and one Egyptian, Youssef Garf, 21, who collectively executed a coordinated £30,000 rampage of high-end watch thefts across the West End between January and July 2024. The first victim, a Chinese tourist, was robbed in Soho, losing his £10,000 Lamborghini Tonino watch. Weeks later, Brendan Costa was assaulted while assisting his elderly mother outside a Marylebone hotel. His £10,000 Hublot was torn from his arm as their getaway driver, Kaou, drove directly toward him, pushing him onto the sidewalk. The next day, the crew attacked 2 more times: a Ritz Hotel guest on New Bond Street and a dog walker in Chelsea. In sum, the watches taken on those 2 days alone were valued at over £20,000. Meanwhile, Youssef Garf and Amin Abdelkader robbed a partygoer in Soho, grabbing his £25,000 Rolex day date as one seized his wrist and the other muffled his shouts. Both were caught by nearby undercover police officers. When police finally trapped Al-Zarzour and Brahim, the aggression persisted in custody. Al-Zarzour urinated on his cell floor and launched a volley of insults at officers, a man who had entered the UK after seeking asylum in Ireland, while Brahim had come on a UK-issued visa in August 2022. Kaou, the driver, was in Britain lawfully on a spousal visa valid until 2026. To the public, it was further evidence that the Rolex Rippers phenomenon had changed once more. No longer just neighborhood gangs, but an international network of criminals exploiting immigration system gaps as their access point into the capital's high-end criminal market. But even as London's undercover units strengthened their control, another name was already coming to light. On a calm November night in Chelsea, a £100,000 Rolex became the object of one of the flying squad's most brutal investigations. The victim was a visitor from the US, walking with his father and a companion. In moments, 2 masked men emerged from the shadows. One brandished a taser, the other a knife. The victim was shoved to the pavement, hit from behind, and commanded to hand over his Rolex Daytona. His father attempted to step in, but was menaced with the blade, which cut directly through his coat. Their terrified companion was compelled to give up her own watch, a modest £200 item, before the robbers escaped in a stolen Jaguar F-Pace waiting nearby. The assailants, Thomas Lenamain Anne, 23, of Fulham, Ronnie Fitzgerald, 20, of Dagenham, and John Stovall, 50, of Kensington, believed they would disappear into the urban expanse. For weeks, detectives had few leads. Their breakthrough occurred from an unexpected source: a decal on the Jaguar's windshield. When detectives compared reports of stolen vehicles with unrecovered Jaguars matching that description, one owner recalled a school parking pass left on the windshield. CCTV verified the same decal was visible during the robbery. From that point, the puzzle started to come together. Hours of surveillance video depicted the robbers with their faces visible before and after the assault. The Jaguar was subsequently found in a car park near Earl's Court, where forensic teams retrieved DNA and fingerprints tying Lenigan, Fitzgerald, and Stovall directly to the incident. At Isleworth Crown Court, both Lenigan and Fitzgerald confessed to plotting the robbery, possessing a stun gun, and threatening with a bladed weapon. Stovall admitted to possessing illicit items and aiding an offender. Following that case, the flying squad broadened its analytics-based anti-robbery plan across the city, charting stolen watch recoveries and incorporating fresh intelligence from the Met's undercover units. At the heart of this increase was Rhys Francis, a 23-year-old from Slough, whose name would quickly become closely associated with a month-long series of armed thefts that frightened West London's most affluent areas. Operating mainly between Paddington, Notting Hill, and Chelsea, Francis used stolen mopeds, frequently employing them as both a weapon and an escape vehicle. On February 10th, 2023, Francis took his first scooter from a delivery driver, using it to cruise the wealthy streets near Hyde Park. Within 48 hours, he attacked again, storming into Marzi, a Greek restaurant in Sussex Place. CCTV later showed him drawing what looked like a pistol from his jacket, aiming it straight at a customer's head, and yelling, "Give me your watch, hand it all over, or I will fire." The frightened victim, Christos Papadopoulos, surrendered a £3,000 timepiece and his wallet holding £400 in cash. That same weekend, Francis targeted numerous victims across West London. One, Joseph Stone, was attacked while walking through Sussex Gardens, made to comply at gunpoint to surrender his designer watch. Another, John Sabiel, a European CEO in London on business, was robbed through his car's open window, losing £10,000 in jewellery and £1,000 in cash. His subsequent robbery, outside a Notting Hill gastro pub, earned Francis a £13,500 Rolex after he threatened to shoot his victim in front of his girlfriend. Police connected the rampage through CCTV, witness accounts, and the stolen scooters, tracking Francis's movements between crime locations. When he was apprehended, investigators found he had perpetrated at least 6 robberies and 2 attempts in less than 10 days, all with the same replica weapon. At sentencing, Judge Alexander Milne of Isleworth Crown Court called the crimes a reign of terror, highlighting the trauma inflicted on victims who truly thought they were moments from being shot. One of the most disturbing developments in luxury watch theft was the deliberate choice by organised crews to tail their victims, not just down a street, but across county lines. The crimes perpetrated by Freddie Agwis, Shane Johnson, and John Weaver revealed the lengths thieves were prepared to go to obtain an expensive item. Investigators assembled a pattern of follow-home assaults that originated in London and concluded in the most tranquil parts of England. In one instance, a woman in her 50s was followed from an appointment in East London, driven nearly 100 miles to her home village of Hingham, Norfolk, and brutally assaulted and robbed while pausing to buy chips. The crew grabbed her watch, tore rings off her hands, and took her Mercedes, leaving her with severe bruising and mental anguish that remained long after the physical wounds healed. In other assaults, the same offenders followed victims to their homes, used vehicles to hit or frighten them, and carried out brutal, organised attacks intended to suppress any opposition. These were not impulsive incidents. Phone and ANPR data later showed the crew travelling together in vehicles, equipping stolen vehicles with fake plates, and using pre-planned tools and methods, from climbing over powered gates to hitting victims with metal clubs. Evidence retrieved at locations and from vehicles, fingerprints, DNA, mobile phone location data, and CCTV provided the connections that ultimately resulted in arrests. The follow-home strategy made the crime intrinsically nationwide. What started as a West End issue expanded as opportunistic thieves and organised pairs copied the same techniques. Localised incidents across the UK, from Croydon's high robbery rates to street thefts in Marylebone and Holborn, started to show the signs of a spreading problem. Offenders learned more quickly, coordinated more effectively, and sometimes copied the more violent county-level strategies. Victims who once felt safe going home now worried about being followed after a night out. One after another, the masterminds and their accomplices received their judgments. Each result mirrored the gravity of their involvement in what had become one of the UK's most prominent types of syndicated street offences. The first clear legal milestone arrived with Stefania Tineika. She pleaded guilty and was imprisoned for 40 months at Chester Crown Court. In London's West End, the courts dealt with the Ede, Jamba, and Whittingham trio. At Suffolk Crown Court, Tedros Ede was given 11 years, Mahad Jamba 8 years, and Christian Whittingham 10 years and 6 months. On the south coast, the Chelsea Balham Rolex Rippers crew were brought to justice at Isleworth Crown Court. Michael Marek Ahmed was given a sentence of 6 years and 9 months in prison. His accomplices, Kaijuan Henry, Russian Clark, Zachariah Yusuf, Jesse Umar, and Joseph Opoku, were all convicted for their parts and given significant prison sentences, though their specific sentence durations were not released publicly. Further north, the Thomas Lenigan gang. Lenigan was given 13 years, Fitzgerald 12 years, and Stovall received 8 years for helping. Further west, the gun-related rampage by Reese Francis led to another firm sentence, concluding with a 10-year prison term at Isleworth Crown Court. The asylum-connected threesome, Ahmed Al-Zarzor, Zaineddin Brahim, and Mohammed Kau, were sentenced at Southwark Crown Court for their coordinated £30,000 rampage. Al-Zarzor received 42 months, Brahim 40 months, and Kau 48 months in prison. Alongside them, Amin Abdelkader and Youssef Garf were given non-custodial sentences instead of prison time. Beyond London, Freddie Agwis, Shane Johnson, and John Weaver were handed some of the stiffest sentences to date. At Norwich Crown Court, Agis was sentenced to 16 years in prison, Johnson to 15 years, and Weaver to 10 years, following a series of 100 miles pursuit robberies extending from London to Norfolk and Worcestershire. What are your thoughts on the cases and the sentences? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. We would be interested to hear your perspective. And if you found this summary informative, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so you do not miss the subsequent episode.